Apples?
They don't want to eat.
Oh, what does he have?
Look at him up there. Look at him. I like watching him.
Welcome to our penguin feed this afternoon. My name's Megan. I'm one of the educators here, and I'm hanging out all the way over here on the left side of the exhibit. Now I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the penguin.
Okay, look at me.
But before everything gets started, we're actually going to check in with David inside the exhibit.
All right, good afternoon. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 3 different kinds of fish we're feeding. We do this every day. We just kind of want to make sure we're giving them some nutritional variety. These guys could really live on one kind of fish all the time, and they sort of do that in the wild, but if we did that here and we ran out of a particular fish or that particular fish and then tried to thaw out something they weren't used to eating and had never seen before, they'd be terrified of it and wouldn't come near it for probably a few days until hunger won out over fear. So instead of putting them through that, we have 3 fish. In case we have trouble getting one in, we've still got a couple of backups that they're used to eating. So I'll start with the largest one, and that's this. This is called Pacific round herring, and it's pretty much identical to a version these African blackfoots eat called the Japanese round herring, but they only eat it once a year when it migrates from Japan down to the southern tip of Africa. And that's usually in early to mid-September, and only for about a week or 2, and then it's gone. But here in the exhibit, we offer it to our birds daily. It's just a heavy, oily fish. And our birds aren't swimming 100 miles a day looking for food. They maybe do 3 to 5 in this exhibit on a good day. So we sort of limit them as to how many they can have. We can't let them eat their fill of it because we like to joke around and say it's the equivalency of a penguin cheeseburger. So maybe 1 or 2 cheeseburgers for these guys isn't such a bad idea because they do have high metabolisms. But anything more than that, and we could run into some serious health issues like fatty livers and that sort of thing. So we have to cut them off at about 1 or 2 fish per bird per day. Now, let's see. Next I've got some rainbow trout. This is a freshwater fish. No wild penguin's ever going to eat one of these, but we had 11 babies hatch out about 5.5 years ago. It's peak breeding season right now, so everybody's fighting over territory and mates. Is that Pee-wee and Tag?
He knows them.
It's like cage wrestling in here. It's so funny. So we usually, unless there's like some blood flying around, we let them work it out on their own because that's just what they do in the wild. So we want to kind of mimic that as much as possible, but sometimes we do intervene. Now, that rainbow trout I was talking about is farm raised. So we're able to get it in such a small size because generally when you're fishing for trout, they have to be a certain length, and sometimes it's a particular time of year. But we can get them any time of year and any size, which is great for us because we don't have to go out into the wild and get any either. Now lastly, I have this. This is called capelin, and this is the fish that they eat the most of. And this is meant to mimic their wild diet. They love a fish called the Cape anchovy in the wild. Unfortunately, we can't feed them that because it's been overfished. People like anchovies just as much as penguins do. And it's for decades been fished to the point where it's pretty much gone. And these guys are literally starving to death in the wild. And their numbers have been greatly impacted by the overfishing of that fish. It's about 80% of their daily diet, so it's very important to them. They actually have been keeping close tabs on these guys in the wild since the late 1800s. And back then, there was about 2.5 to 3 million breeding pairs of African blackfoots in the wild. And currently, there are less than 22,000 breeding pairs. And most of those perished between the years 2000 and 2010. When they got that census back, they saw that over 70% of them had died in just 1 decade. And that was mostly attributed to the overfishing of the main food supply. Now, this isn't a problem that happened overnight. It's certainly not going to get fixed overnight. We're just hoping that they can hang on. That 22,000 pairs I just talked about, that's down from 24,000 last year. So we've lost 2,000 just in 1 year. So we're not going up, we're hoping to, but it's going to take some time. We're just hoping that they can maintain until that happens. Now, when we feed our birds, we do what we call a monitored feed, and that's why Emily's in here with me. she's got a clipboard with the names of all the birds on it. And so whenever I give somebody a fish, let's see if I can get someone to eat today. Here we go. Flippy got a capelin. She puts a mark next to their name. So why do we do that? Well, penguins are birds, and a lot of birds have this ability to hide any symptoms when they're not feeling good, so they can blend in with the other healthy birds to confuse a predator. So eventually they're going to show some signs of an illness over time, but by the time that happens, it's usually too late for us to do anything for it because they've hidden it for so long. So this is like an early detection system for us, because the one thing they're unable to hide is their appetite. So we write down everything they're eating every day so we know what each bird's appetite looks like on a daily basis. And that way, if somebody stops eating or if their appetite drops off dramatically, that's the first indication we have that somebody's not feeling well. And we can get our vet to come in here and take a look at them. So we're going to go ahead and get started feeding in here. Megan is mic'd up like I am, so if you guys have any questions, just ask her. And if she can't answer, she'll ask it of us in here. We'd be more than happy to answer that for you. So don't hesitate to interrupt the food, we don't mind at all. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Megan, so you can talk to these guys about penguins for a little bit. And hopefully we'll be seeing you in about 20 minutes. We'll be outside too.
Thank you, David. Guys, as you said, if you have any questions, just pass them to me. I will pretty much be hanging out over here on the left side of the exhibit. I do have African penguins here at the aquarium. There are 20 birds in this exhibit. There are a few of them that I'm going to try to point out to y'all, and if we can't see them, I'll at least tell you about them. The first one is Ernie, and Ernie's actually up at the feet. The penguin close to the water all the way to the right. He's just kind of hanging out there by himself. When he goes to eat, you'll notice he leans over and he's almost a straight line. So, Ernie over there is actually our oldest penguin. He is 36 years old.
Oh my gosh, Ernie's 36.
I know that sounds pretty old for a penguin, because that's pretty old for a penguin. So out in the wild, these guys would live to be about 10 to 12 years old on average. And when they're under human care, it just means that they're living at a zoo or an aquarium, someplace that humans are taking care of them. Then they usually live into about their mid to late 20s. So even for a penguin under human care, Ernie is a little bit older. Now one of the things is penguins do tend to get cataracts and arthritis. They get these in the wild as well as at zoos and aquariums. And out in the wild it would be a lot harder for them to get around, to either find their food or to get away from predators. Now here it's not as bad for them. Ernie actually is blind in his right eye from cataract. But again, here he doesn't have those predators to worry about. He doesn't have to find his own food. In fact, if he doesn't feel like coming down for one of the feeds, we'll bring him room service. And when I say coming down for the feed, I do mean coming down for the feed. So you guys on the left can probably see this, but if you look up top on the right side, all the way to the back, we have that little cubby hole with those nest areas. The one with the slanted top is Ernie's nest. And it's one of his favorite places to be. If you guys came around earlier, or if you come back after he is done eating, or stick around until he's finished, he might get in the water because his other favorite place to be is swimming into the window over on the right side. Now once he started losing that vision in his right eye, he kind of kept track of where he was going with his beak. So he just figured out that was the best way to swim. Now if you do see a penguin swimming into the window on the right, do check out their name tag, because we did have a lot of young penguins. About 5 years ago, we had 11 hatch out during the whole year, so it was a busy year for us. And most of those 11 decided to learn how to swim from Ernie, and they just went up and down on the window. So you might see them doing that, they're being themselves.
Look at his
temperature in the exhibit. So in the air, it's about 70 degrees, and in the water, it is about 55 degrees.
there, 55 degrees.
So, do the other penguins pick on Ernie? Not because he's the oldest one or because he's blind in one eye or anything like that. But there have been some fights over ladies that he's been involved in. He's still a lady penguin.
When all the fish is leaving us.
Yes.
One of their name, it looks like his name was Dumpty.
It's Dumpty.
Yeah, I thought it was
Dumpty.
Have you guys up front by the metal between the windows? If you feel that metal, that will give you an idea of how cold the water is. And I know that those temperatures are not really what you guys are probably expecting to see penguins in. So all of the penguins that get the attention are usually the Antarctic penguins. And those ones like the big emperor penguins and king penguins. And they do need that cold. Now there are 18 different species of penguins in the world. All of them living either at the equator or to the south of the equator. So they're all in the southern hemisphere. And of those guys, only 5 species need that really, really cold Antarctic climate. We do have quite a few separate species of penguins, like our African penguins, that just need a little bit warmer. The farthest north and the warmest area that penguins live in is there are penguins that are on the Galapagos Islands, right on the equator. You guys can probably guess what they are called because it's not that inventive. They are Galapagos penguins. Yep. But one thing that all penguin species have in common is you need that cool water to swim in. Yeah. Of course, they're going to be in different levels of cold water. But they do need that cold, and so they also all have very insulating feathers. So these guys have 70 feathers per square inch. That is 70 feathers. To give you kind of an idea of how dense that is, a lot of the flighted birds that we are used to seeing have between 7 and 10 feathers in that square inch. So it's rather dense for them. They do have a nice down layer, and that holds an air bubble around them to keep them warm. They also do make an oil that they produce in the land, pick up with their beaks and their feathers, and that keeps them waterproof.
Is this going to be your aquarium?
You guys might notice the penguins starting to swim around in the water when they're done eating. And we'll sometimes even have them kind of roll onto their side, rubbing themselves with their wings, or rubbing their beaks with their feathers. Those things are all what they do during penguin bath time. So since their feathers are so important to keep them warm and dry in the water, they do want to make sure that they are all clean and laying flat. Now, the feathers also do get a little bit worn out, and after about a year, they will go through a molt. Now, all birds do this. It's just when they lose last year's feathers and they grow in a new set. Now, for the penguins, they actually lose all of their feathers at one time. Flighted birds are a little bit different. They'll lose a feather or so at a time. That lets them always be able to fly around and get their food. But for penguins, since they had a couple feathers missing, their little wetsuit is what it looks. Instead of waiting months to be able to get in the water, these guys go through a catastrophic molt and only wait a couple weeks. I know a catastrophic molt doesn't sound like the most pleasant thing, and it honestly doesn't look that pretty. But all it means is that they are losing all of their feathers at one time. Now, it does start off around their feet, and then it kind of works its way up towards their head. And while they're losing those feathers, the new feathers are starting to grow out as well. It does take about 2 to 2.5 weeks to go through this change. So while they're going through that change, they're not able to get in the water. That's a pretty long time to not be able to eat. So these guys have a special way of dealing with that. They can tell when that molt is coming.
Let's look down.
And so they will start to eat as much as they can for about a week before that molt. Now you guys might be wondering, what is as much as a penguin can eat? Well, to give you guys an idea of that, on a normal day, our penguins usually average about a 1/2 pound to a pound of fish per penguin. But we have had some times when the penguins have been going into their molds where we have had penguins eat upwards of 4 pounds of fish per penguin. So that's quite a lot extra, especially when you think of it that our smallest penguin in here is Dumpty. Dumpty weighs 5 pounds. And the average weight for these guys is only about 8 to 9 pounds. Now we do have our largest penguin in here who's a little bit bigger than the rest. He's Tag. If you guys were here earlier, I believe he was one of them involved in that penguin fight. So Tag's our big boy. He is around 12 pounds. Now whenever they eat all that extra food, they're able to get a nice fat layer stored up, and then they live off of that stored energy during the time that they're growing their feathers. There's one other penguin that I'd like to talk to you guys about, and her name is Elmer. Elmer is our youngest penguin. See, she was swimming around earlier if you guys were here. Right now she is just to the right of the boulder. She's a white-faced penguin staring out at us. She's got a red name tag on. And if you look at her belly, she has 4 spots that almost make a perfect square. So Elmer over there again is our youngest penguin. She is only 2 years old. And I do like to talk about her, not just because she's our youngest and totally my favorite penguin, but because of her name. So I know a lot of people do wonder how the penguins get their names, who gets to name them, all of that fun stuff. And so for the most part, it is our aviculturists that name them. I mean, they get to work with the penguins, so they name them. And usually there is some kind of story that goes behind the name. So Elmer's is my favorite story to tell. So for Elmer, her story actually happened before she hatched out. So we found her egg in the exhibit. It was laid one day. And when our aviculturist found the egg, we realized that there were some very small cracks in that eggshell. Now I know that's not a good thing for the chick developing inside. And that if we left that partially cracked egg in the exhibit, we would pretty soon have a completely cracked egg. Definitely didn't want that to happen.
Zelda.
So we got the egg up to our incubator, we got it nice and warm, and then we also wanted that egg, or the chick inside, to have the best chances that it could. And part of that was making sure that that eggshell was as intact as we can get it. See, the eggshell is the first line of defense that the chick has against anything getting into the egg. So especially kind of bacteria or anything like that you don't want inside your egg. So we want to make sure that she had the best chances possible. So we grabbed a little bit of Elmer's glue, fixed those cracks right up, and then the name just stuck. Now we did find out when she was about 2 months old that she is definitely a girl. So we decided instead of changing her name, since it's just too perfect, to change the spelling. So if you guys get a chance to see her name tag, you'll notice that it is spelled E-L-M-Y-R. A little bit more feminine, just as great of a name. Now whenever you are looking at our penguins, they do have name tags out, so see their wristbands. And they do, as you can probably guess, have their names on them.
Look how they get out.
You
So
see
funny.
who's who. There's another thing that those bands tell you. We have them color-coded to let you know if the penguins are boys or girls. We've got red tags on our girls and blue tags on our boys. The thing is, there is no way to tell just by looking at a penguin if it's male or female. And that's when it's a chick, when it's a juvenile, when it's adult. When adult, at any time, you cannot tell. So what we did is did all the hard work, and we sent some of the feathers from all of our penguins off to the lab. We get a genetic test run on that. We usually get those. Yes, that is the best way to hold a penguin. If you guys get a chance to check out over here, I do have a penguin skeleton. You will notice that they have very long S-curved necks, and that helps them in being able to get their food and to fight with each other when they're fighting over territories. It also helps them to grab our aquaculturists. And so the best way to hold them, even though it looks like not the best way, is to actually hold them by their neck and then support them on, support their feet like David was doing. If you have any questions, you come let me know. I will be hanging out over here on the right side of the exhibit, or left side of the exhibit. I'm dyslexic. So just head over here if y'all have any questions. But I do want to thank you guys so much for coming out to the aquarium today. By buying a ticket and coming in for helping us support all the conservation efforts that we are a part of. I do greatly appreciate that. So most importantly,